Hey, everybody, it's Jim Johnson here, your host with Contractor Radio and the head coach at Contractor Coach Pro, where we help contractors get control of their business so they can grow their business and experience that financial and personal freedom they were chasing when they started their business. And one of the great ways that we do that and try to help you guys to give you practical information that you can walk away from listening to our podcast and hopefully go execute immediately to help you with your business. We try to be informative, educational, hopefully a little entertaining along the way, and bring on guests that really know what they're talking about. And I've got a great one today. This guy had seen our podcast, listened to our podcast, reached out to me, and I get a lot of those. I probably get 5 to 10 a week of people wanting to be on our podcast, and it's pretty rare that I go yes. Most of them just don't bring a whole lot of value, so we kind of skip through those or they don't apply to us. But this guy had a couple of really interesting concepts that I thought would be valuable to our listeners. And so I want to talk about that today, and this idea of being able to tell your story and improve your marketing and improve it dramatically, and really kind of how people might really perceive buying and what we do there. But before we do, we got to take care of those bills. I have a little video here from one of our sponsors. We will be right back in just a second.
The Atlas Pro Plus Contractor Program is designed to help you build your business. It gives you tools and resources, training, industry insights, bonus structures, technical knowledge, the brand power and science of 3M Scotchgard, and what we think is the best product and warranty in the industry. Become part of the family that is succeeding and growing their businesses.
We went from nobody ever heard of us to the #1 roofing company in our region.
And we've gone from 12 roofs a year to 20, 35, and we did over 400 last year.
We're on track right now to do 1,000 roofs this year.
You'll begin earning Atlas bucks and rewards as you move up to even greater reward levels. Become an Atlas Pro today.
We absolutely love our friends at Atlas. If you have not had a chance to talk to those guys and work with those guys on what it is that you offer to your clients, you're missing out. They're really great on the marketing side, and that's what we're talking about today, is positioning ourselves in the market to take advantage of some of the technology that's out there today, to really evaluate the way that we stand with that technology. And then finally, this concept of telling our story in a way that is magnetically attractive to the ideal clients that we're looking for. And today we're bringing in our special guest from Invicta Enterprises, President, CEO, and all things awesome at Invicta. We've got Brady Smith. Brady, welcome aboard today, man.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. Really excited about this.
Well, it's good to have you. Like I said, kind of in the intro, you reached out to me. You cheated a little bit. You gave me a 5-star review. You told me how great it was, the show that you had listened to. And then you gave me 3 really good things that you thought you could bring a lot of value in. And I think if all people approach trying to get on our show that way, they'd probably have more success. It's usually like, hey, your show's really good. I'd like to be on your show. And but you were very specific, and you wrote it really well. And so tell us a little bit about your background, like what's brought you here to Invicta Enterprises and helping contractors out with things with their website, with their marketing, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the very kind words there. I'm glad that you enjoyed that pitch there. But yeah, so that really, as far as background goes, we were chatting a little bit. I've done all kinds of jobs, from construction to building airplanes to delivering for UPS, and just wasn't really finding my stride there. Growing up, I always loved writing. I was a bit of a nerd, I think, when it comes to that sort of thing. I always got really excited about a blank page, which, again, sounds kind of nerdy, but there's just so much potential. You have limitless potential when you have a blank page to work with. So that really got me into writing at a young age. And then, kind of took off from there. I got a bachelor's degree in communications and was kind of like, I can't really use this at UPS very well. So I was looking for other ways to try to use that. So got into doing just copywriting, writing blog articles and that sort of thing for all kinds of different websites, from investment advice to barbecue reviews. So pretty much anything you can think of there. And just really taught me a lot about how to communicate a message. I did as much learning and research as I could to really make sure that what I was putting out there was actually going to, move some results. So yeah, a lot of background there. We talked about I've over 1 million words that I've written over the years and on all different types of topics. So that's really one of the things that I bring to the table anytime we do a website for a client is it's not just a pretty website. It's a website that has text on it that's actually going to move people to take the actions that you want them to take. So a little bit of copywriting in there, and then a whole lot of web design as well over the years, just trying to help all kinds of different businesses get their website on track.
So it's funny that you mentioned this writing aspect of things. Verbal communication has always been a decent gift of mine, but taking that and putting it down on paper in a marketing format is always a bit difficult for me. I want to tell more, like I want to write a whole bunch, right? And so one of the things I did with my own contracting business is I went out and I found a freelance copywriter. Like, hey, I kind of know what I want down, but for some reason it's not working the way I want it to. Can you take a look and tell me what I'm doing wrong? And he goes, you're making it too complicated. Like, it's just, you're putting way too much down. Let's get to the brass tacks of what it is that you're looking for. And then he writes it up. And I was like, man, that's so good. Like, how'd you learn how to do that? He goes, well, yeah, I have a degree in communications and especially copywriting. And you focus there. And I said, well, okay, so what's the thing? He goes, well, it really comes down to this. You have to be able to write in a way at a 7th grade level. I said, so what you're telling me is you went to college for 4 years to learn how to write like a 7th grader? And he's like, well, now that you put it that way, but it really was like you have to almost, and I hate to use the word dumb it down, but simplify it, I guess, for people to be able to clearly understand what your message is. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And there's a lot of good writing tools out there. Grammarly is probably one that you've seen YouTube ads for. That I don't know what their budget is for YouTube ads, but it's way too much. But yeah, Grammarly, there's another one called Hemingway app. And they'll, like, if you have a blog post, you can put it into that tool and it'll look at it and it'll tell you all your grammar issues, and it'll also tell you your grade level. So if you're wrote on a 3rd grade level, it'll tell you 3rd grade. If 12th grade, it'll tell you 12th grade. So that's a really good tool for checking out, like, okay, is this on the level that, people are going to be able to understand? And yeah, you're right. It's definitely not dumbing it down. It's just making sure that you're communicating with everybody, just a kind of a common denominator there, that 7th grade level. It's a pretty good rule of thumb to work off of.
Awesome. Cool. So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was this quick way to audit your website for easy improvements. You gave me 3 items. We're going to hit those 3 items today. We're probably going to dig in a little bit more than that. But what are some of the ways that these guys? Because first off, when you talk about SEO and SEM, I literally, like, my eyes glaze over. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want somebody else to do that for me. And it's not necessarily fear. It's just, God, that's going to be a lot to take on. So what's some of the things these guys could do out on their own to audit their websites?
Yeah. I love this topic because I feel like so many business owners, they struggle just knowing how to look at their website, because when you're this close, it's really hard to see the forest for the trees, and it's hard to look at it from a customer or a client point of view. So that's really the biggest mindset shift, if you can kind of look at it that way. How can I look at this like a customer would instead of looking at this like a business owner? It's very hard to kind of get far enough back to really get that perspective. So one easy way to audit is actually just to ask some people. So go to your friends, family, and those might not be the best options. Maybe a past client, somebody that you have worked with, and just be like, hey, what do you think of my website? And get some feedback from them, because they're, by definition, your ideal client, right? So you've worked for them, you've done some work for them, and then they can give you some honest feedback on the website. That might be a little hard to take at first, especially, if it was something that you did yourself or that type of thing, but just being humble and just being willing to listen to some feedback there. There's really several different things that I like to focus on, though, as far as how to audit your website. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about a tool that we have to help you do this. But really, one of the first things is your first impression, and we call it the 2-second test. So studies have shown they do heat maps where they actually track people's eyes. And then bounce rates is how long somebody stays on the website before they bounce. So when somebody lands on the website, based on all the studies they've done and stuff, they determine you have about 2 seconds to grab somebody's attention and get them hooked to scroll down past the main section, the above the fold section, 2 seconds, or else they're gone. So if you are coming onto your website and maybe your text is hard to read, maybe it's too small, maybe what it says doesn't really apply to what you do, then that's really a very easy win that you can do, is just look at that 2-second test. When you land on the website, count to 2. If you don't know what problem you solve and how you solve it, just by those 2 seconds, then you're probably missing out. You're probably having a very high bounce rate because of that.
Awesome. The 2-second rule. When you keep my attention for 2 seconds, say might stay a little, and I can attest to that. Our time that people were spending on our website was about 32 seconds whenever we first dug into this. Yeah. We were there for 32 seconds, grab whatever like info they could, and they go, no more, and off they go, right?
Yeah.
Now we're up to almost 4 minutes that people are spending on their website. So we did some very practical and tactical things to do that, but we had to go get some help for it. It wasn't something that we were all that brilliant on, and we were able to get some of those things. What are some of those things guys could do to increase that engagement?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I see happening is a lot of times the above the fold section, we call it the hero section. It's kind of industry lingo. The hero section of the website is that first panel that you see when you land on there. And a lot of times it can be easy to try and cram too much into there. So I see, you land on there and it's this big long sentence that like spans the entire thing, and then you've got a bunch of paragraphs underneath that, and it's just like too much information, like all up there in your face. And the sad part about being a copywriter in this day and age is that people don't actually read text very much, especially when they first land on a website. So you have to rope them in. You have to get that interest, that attention first, and then you can present more content. So I would say if you have more than 20 words there in that hero section, you're probably overwhelming people with too much text content. So reduce the amount of text content. That's huge. The second would be a good image. This doesn't necessarily have to relate exactly to your industry. So like for instance, I've done websites for a dentist, and a lot of times they think, okay, I'm a dentist, I got to put teeth like right front and center. But you gotta think a level past that, because there are a lot of dental images out there that are just not pleasant to look at. So if somebody lands on your website and all they see is teeth, they might get a little scared away. So think a level below that is like, okay, this dentist, or even for a contractor, the people, they don't necessarily want a deck. They don't necessarily want a roof. So if you have a picture of a roof there, a lot of times people are gonna be like, okay, like I get it, you're a roofer, but that's subliminally not really speaking to their actual desire, their actual needs. So the level below that would be, the family having a nice dinner out on the deck on a nice summer afternoon or something like that. So actually go a level deeper, instead of just like, here's what I do. Actually kind of get that subliminal messaging of, here's the benefit that is going to provide to you once this service is complete. So that's the two big things that I would say on that hero section. Make sure that your text is very targeted, so you want not too much text, and you also want to make sure that it really lays out the problem and solution right there. So for contractors, then again, like I said, just make sure that your image is actually communicating the benefit of what you do and not just what you do.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty good ones on it. One of the ones that really sticks out in my mind, it was 2 pictures, like a before and an after. And the before was water dripping on the side of this guy's head, and his wife sitting in bed with like this angry face. And then next to it was both of them dead asleep with like, rainbows and unicorns in their dreams and stuff. And it's like, that was pretty good. That was engaging.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
So great advice. I really dig it. So I want to get on to subject number 2 here. So those are a couple of quick ways to audit your website and really kind of think about what you're putting out there. But what's the one design tweak that can increase your subscriber conversion rate by 35%?
This one's pretty cool, and there's been a lot of stuff done around this. It's called the upside down homepage. So basically, when you land on a normal website, what you see a menu with some links and that type of thing. That's kind of the first thing that you usually see is here's my logo and here's my menu. And that honestly isn't terribly interesting to most people. They don't really care what pages are on your website. People come to a website because they have a problem. So if you can show, I know what your problem is and I know how to solve it, then you're going to go a long way in setting yourself apart from the competition and also making sure that person sticks around to check out what else is on your website. So first, on the upside down homepage, instead of putting that menu and all that stuff at the top, we're going to start with an intro and a call to action. So something very short and sweet, and then a button that they can click. So for a lot of contractors, it's, get a quote or, call us or something like that. So we'd want that call to action just right there. Make it super clear exactly what you want the person to do and why they should do it. So again, problem and solution. So then the second thing that you want to focus on is your proof. So again, we're building that upside down homepage. Usually people bury their testimonials on another page, or maybe it's down in the footer or something like that. So instead of that, we want to lead with that. So what do you do on Amazon? What is one of the first things that you check when you're going to buy a product? How many stars does this have? Yeah, we want to see that social proof. So if you can actually lead with that and make sure, have a couple testimonials, even if you only have one, if it's a good one, and really make it pop, you don't want to just put a giant paragraph of a testimonial. If you can have a picture of the person and a bold sentence that kind of conveys their experience with you, that's going to go a long ways in making sure people think, okay, this guy's legit. I think they know what they're doing. The next section is we call the self-selector section. So not everyone who comes to your site is the same. So obviously, as a contractor, you might have multiple services that you offer. So if you're doing roofing and decks and something else, you want to make sure that you're appealing to all those people. So the main call to action can be one thing, but then once you get down to this section, you want to provide some more options. So if somebody's interested enough to scroll down a little bit further, let them self-select into what they want to do. So do they want to learn more? Do they want to call you? Is there, several different product offerings or service offerings that you can put there? Basically, it's a choose your own adventure. So obviously you don't want to overwhelm them, but you want to have up to 3 options there in that self-selector section. So that's kind of the third one there. So we got the intro with the call to action, the proof, the self-selector, and then number 4, your story. And again, I think we'll get into this a little bit more here in a bit, but basically, if they're willing to keep scrolling and get to this point, then you can actually tell your story and kind of introduce yourself. People like doing business with people. They don't want to do business with a business. They want to know who you are, who your team is, and really get to know you, because that builds that trust. So, and again, we can talk more about this, but really finding a way to make that story about them. So it's kind of
hold on a second. Time out. Don't give it away yet. Like I want to get there, but
okay.
I kind of want to say this part because this is the part I'm really passionate about.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. We'll just put your story in section number 4 there. We'll come back to what that story should look like. So then right after that, yeah. I
want to ask you more about this upside down homepage. Like that's a term I've never heard before, and I'm like Mr. into figuring out how to do our marketing better. Is this a concept that you see more often now, or is this something that's a little bit newer? What's the story with the upside down homepage?
You see it a lot with more like SaaS tools and kind of technology related websites. So a lot of times you'll get to a website and like you won't even see a menu at the top or that sort of thing. So really it makes sense, because when somebody lands on a website, you don't want to give them that necessarily. You want them to take an action. So that action is scheduling a consultation or requesting a quote. Why would you distract them with that stuff up at the top before they get to that call to action? So that's really the idea behind it, is focusing on the first stuff that you've got their attention for at least 2 seconds, so you might as well use it to the best of your ability. So it is something that you are seeing more of. It's definitely taken a while to kind of trickle down into these kind of more hands-on industries. It definitely has started more in kind of the SaaS and technology products side of things.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself. We look at a lot of technology. We're trying to automate stuff all the time here in our business, and we see a lot of that. And it is kind of a thing. Schedule a demo, right? Like that's what that's what I went there for, maybe. But most likely that's not what I'm there for personally. But I think a large portion of people are. A lot of times I'm kind of doing some research. I tend to be a research kind of guy. And so I'm looking for that second thing you said, which I think is the biggest thing. And you're right. When I'm on Amazon, I am like, I won't even look at the thing if the stars aren't high enough. And then even once the stars are high enough, I'm going to go look at the reviews and see if they're fake or real or what the deal. Like I'm kind of doing a little bit of research on it. Yeah. And then I tend to be the guy that goes and looks at like the 1 stars, like what did other people have to say, right? And so we kind of focus there, like what was the bad experience and why was that? And I think we're intelligent enough most of the time to go, that was more the buyer than the seller. Like that was you just not real confident about what you're doing. Yeah. In most cases, or there's really a problem there. Man, that was really cool. We might even take some of your advice on that stuff.
Yeah, worth a shot.
Let's talk about the self-selector thing. You use the words "choose your adventure," and so is it at this point we're trying to engage them to do something on the site, like, hey, just take some kind of action, anything to hold you here for a few more seconds?
Yeah, and honestly, as easy as it is to focus on bounce rate and that type of thing, I honestly wouldn't be as concerned about that as I would be with what are they doing. So if somebody lands on my website, they're there for 5 seconds and they schedule a call with me and then they're gone, that's fine. I'm totally happy with that. So it's all about the actual taking of action. So if that main call to action in your top section gets them to take action, they don't scroll, that's totally fine. So you get on, take the next step. That's what it's all about. It's about ROI. So if they get to the self-selector though, that means they probably the first call to action didn't quite get them. So maybe provide a little bit more information, a little bit more of the individual services that you offer and that sort of thing. And by this time they've seen your testimonials as well, so built a little bit of trust there. So kind of that's the idea there is lead with the main thing you want them to do, and then provide some more options afterwards, because if they're scrolling, they're interested. So you have permission to kind of offer them some other options.
So on the first one, the intro with call to action, is it okay to have 2? Like call us here or schedule an appointment there? Like could it be that type of thing?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really like to make very clear. This is not set in stone. So obviously, each website is different. Each client is different. Each, person who's landing on your website is different. So none of this is set in stone. If you have a menu at the top, it's not going to completely destroy your website and all that sort of thing. But it's just some general principles. I would say if you can get it down to 1 option there in the top, that would probably be preferable. That being said, I have had clients who, they have a residential and a commercial side of things. So they know they're going to have those 2 people coming to the same website. So they want to make it really clear, like, hey, this is where you go if you're residential. This is where you go if you're commercial. So in that circumstance, I could definitely see at least having, those 2 options to kind of allow people to take their own path that fits them best.
So if I go back to my example, like call us here or schedule there, would you say pick one of those 2 and put the other one down below?
I would, yeah, honestly, because when you provide people with options, then they have to exercise some kind of will to choose. Whereas if you don't provide them, all they have to do is just be like, click, So it's kind of that difference of when you have options, then all of a sudden your will has to come into play versus just a reaction of clicking a button.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's really good. So we're going to talk about this story integration idea and what that really means here in just a minute. But before we do, we're going to take a quick break. We have bills to pay and employees to pay and all that other good stuff. So we're going to listen to one of our sponsors. Absolutely love these guys, HailTrace. Take it away.
If you're not using HailTrace, it's definitely worth the money. That money invested one sale was already bought. We've got from denied or declined 2 acts of being bought just because of HailTrace and the storm reports that they give us.
Not only do I know where the storm's at, sometimes as they're happening, and I can already head right there to the storm, but also after the fact, when I'm out knocking on doors, I can show homeowners the map and what kind of hail was in their area.
We've seen a huge return on our investment, and I have no doubt that you will too.
It's absolutely one of my favorite commercials because it's snowing while they're doing it. Like there's snow actually hitting her, and they're in Oklahoma, which is kind of
boy.
Great tool though. It goes far beyond just mapping. It is a way to track your team and the outdoor canvassing they're doing. So some CRM capabilities. It really is a cool tool. If you haven't checked out HailTrace yet, go grab a demo from those guys. Derek and his team are people that put their customers first. We absolutely love having them as a sponsor. So Brady, let's talk story. I did not know about this concept from a technical aspect until, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. I really kind of getting, like, there's a book out there about this story brand idea. There's several other books about telling stories in your business. And I knew about the general concept, right? And I've applied that over the years, but there's actually some practical and tactical things that we can do. How do you set your design apart through this story integration aspect of things?
Yeah. The biggest thing anytime you're telling a story is realizing that people, they want to be entertained. And that's something we were chatting about before we started here, was just the entertainment industry. And look, they're doing $2.5 trillion a year is the last stat that I saw. So there's money in entertaining people, and your story is one way to do that. So you look at, some of the most popular websites in the world, they are based around stories. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, those are all people telling some kind of story and people wanting to come check out that story. So what is your story? And how do you tell that story in a way that it makes your client see themselves in it? Basically, you're putting up a mirror to your client through your story, which may sound a little paradoxical because it's like, well, it's my story. How do I tell it about the client? And that's kind of what we want to get into here, because you have to remember, nobody comes to a website because they want to hire you or they want your service. Okay. We have to think a layer deeper, just like we were talking about on those images there. It can't just be, here's a roof. It's got to be, what is that layer deeper? I want that shelter. I want security. I want to make sure, people feel safe and all that sort of thing. So how can we dive into that with your story? So your site visitors, they're asking, what's in it for me? They're coming with a problem and they're hoping for one thing. They're hoping that you have the solution that they're looking for. So, nobody really cares about you or your story. So how do we actually make it so that your story tells some kind of story about them? So basically, whether you're a plumber, a painter, a framer, you have a story, and that is what can set you apart if you know how to use it. So if you land on a website and there's just, kind of some stock stuff and very canned sounding text, versus if you land on a website and the images, look good and there's real people, that you're actually able to get to know through the website with a story, you can instantly feel that there's, heart, I guess, behind the site. So which one would you want to give your business to if you were in that situation? Is kind of the thought process that we're going through here.
Yeah, this concept is something that has kind of made me rethink our own marketing. And one of the things we do is we focus on the client or the prospective client, whoever's on our site, and what they're aspiring to. They're aspiring to something, and it isn't that they're aspiring to get a coach. That's not it. Yeah, I know that. Like, nobody would rather have one if they could avoid it. But they're aspiring to get some information so they can get control of their business, and then some education and implementation so they can grow their business, because what they're actually after is personal and financial freedom. And that was one of the first exercises we did as we went through this story thing, was to figure out, what are they aspiring to? What is it that our customer wants? Because if we can get that part of the story out there right away, we're going to engage them in telling the rest of the story. And the parts we play, the parts they play, and this idea that they're the actual hero of the story. They're struggling with these things and they have these problems, and here's the solutions to those problems, and we can guide you along the way, kind of like you're Luke Skywalker and to the young Padawan, right? Yeah. And they are going to become Luke Skywalker, or maybe something even more. And once we kind of grasp that idea of things, we've applied it to everything we do. Any product we offer has its own story and how it applies to them specifically. Do you see it that way? Do you see like they're kind of the hero of the story, and how do you embed that into what you actually did?
Yeah, I mean, I love that you brought up like hero, like it's basically the hero's journey. And like you said, there's multiple books that have been written about this, but it's definitely worth exploring. It's such a cool thing because as soon as you see it, it's like you can't not see it. Everywhere you look, you're like, oh my goodness, like that makes so much more sense. You look at amazing brands like Nike, like they're so aspirational, and obviously not every brand is going to be aspirational necessarily, but for this type of thing, in the contractor world, this is definitely something that you you can tie into. So it can seem a little overwhelming at first, though, because like, well, I wanted to make some money, so I became a contractor. That's my story. But if you look at it a little bit deeper, the outline that I like to use is basically three things. So basically, it's your problem, then a breakthrough, and then a solution. So if you can figure out what are those three things and then kind of tell it, then that allows you to have a nice little outline to kind of like just shelve things on, and then you can build your story off of that. So problem, breakthrough, solution. And I did come across this example. This isn't my example, but I found it, which I thought was really cool. I don't know if you've heard of Tuft and Needle. They're like one of the new, awesome mattress in a box type of companies. So they're kind of a competitor of like Casper and Purple and that sort of thing. But there you have a cool story. Basically the guy who founded it, him and his wife were going mattress shopping. They end up in this mattress shop. They're looking around. There's pushy salespeople. All these specials and deals, and here's all the money that you're going to be spending. And it's kind of just a weird, uncomfortable showroom. Like you're having to lay down on a bed in front of people and like all this weird stuff. And so they just after doing all that, they're just like, this is not good. So that was kind of the problem. So it kind of sets things up. This is the situation that we found ourselves in. Then the breakthrough was basically when they are kind of assessing things after that had been done. They've been to the mattress shop. It was not a pleasant experience. They kind of came back and said, maybe business can be done differently. Maybe mattresses could be done differently. So basically they took all their experience, talked about how that gave them a breakthrough. It's like, okay, we can do this in a different way that's going to be better for the customer. And then the solution is, and there they lay out Tuft and Needle, their company, and here's how we solve that problem and make it all better. So if you can find that those three things, just your problem, your breakthrough, and solution. So for a contractor, it could be something like, I've been around this town all my life. I've seen a lot of my neighbors and friends. They had roof problems, and it was just never working out for them. They get the contractor, and they end up flaking on them. And basically, you're telling the story of the problem that you ran in through, and then you come to the breakthrough moment. This is my epiphany. I realized that I had the skills and the desire to help people in this way. So here's the solution, aka my business, aka here, let me help you solve that problem that you've got. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And fortunately, in our industry, there's lots of problems to solve, whether that be communication, quality, safety. There's lots of different things that we could focus on there. And you used a word that I thought was brilliant. You have this epiphany. A lot of these guys that are in this business, they worked for somebody else before, and that wasn't going so well for either the people that worked there or the people they were doing work for. And so they had this epiphany that they could do it better. And this is what they did to do it better. And this is their solution. And so you see a lot of that in our industry. I think it actually applies to my business. I was helping sell software to contractors with AccuLinks, help put that together. They actually bought my software and helped get them off the ground. And the epiphany was there was more to it for them than just the software. There was some business aspect of things. And I said, well, okay, what else is out there? And most of the programs were like group coaching or some kind of membership level type thing. And like, they need more help than that. And so how can we provide some one-on-one stuff to help them be successful? And then we developed this solution that we do today, which is really personal and really customized and more towards their belief than our system, right? Like there's everything that was out there was very like, you got to do our system to be successable, and that's not really the truth. And so it was kind of cool to do that, and I hadn't really thought of it that way before until you brought it up along those lines. Like maybe we could even tell our story a little bit better, how it applies to those guys. So thanks for helping me a little bit with our thought processes too. Yeah, that was really good. Good. So this hero journey thing, is that something you believe in? Like, is that a concept? Like, you've really kind of simplified it into these three things. Like the hero journey, I think is 8 to 10 things that this hero kind of goes through until he like, hey, pulls the sword from the stone type of deal, right? Yeah. But do you subscribe to that concept too?
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you want to go deeper and want to tell a bigger story, that's definitely a good thing to do. I think maybe your about section on your homepage is definitely not the place to do that, though. People do not have the attention span to go through 8 options. What I'd say, if you want to go deeper into your story with more of the hero's journey and that type of thing, a video would actually be a great way to do that. A group video is a great way to drive engagement and allow people to even get to know you better, because then they see your face, they actually interact with you, and that's visual component, and that makes a huge difference there. But I think these 3 things, describing those key moments, the all 3 of those, and then just crafting your story around those, keep the details that kind of bring it to life, but you pretty much want to skip everything that is irrelevant to just understanding the basic plot of things. So yeah, I'd say keep it simple on those, and if you want to go deeper, I think a video would be a great way to do that and really get to know your people a little bit better there.
Well, it's proven to work. And like, we're sharing this. Like, if anybody watching this goes and just looks up, like, you can find it on Google in a heartbeat, the hero story and what that entails. And like, okay, now that I know that, I'm just going to start looking at everything. Every movie you watch, you'll see it. You will literally see that hero. This thing that's been repeated for thousands of years. Before it was actually media and movies, it was books, and before that it was storytellers, and it's always been this thing that actually engages people, which is what we want. We want to engage them and make them stay, and hopefully have them be a part of that story. They see themselves at the end being, hey, the hero, right? And I think the way that you're doing it is a great way to start. We believe in this concept of stages of contractor. You got small guys just trying to do what they can to get it figured out to make it to the next level, but then you got these guys that they grow and they make it to the next level, and now they have a little bit more time to invest. I think they kind of start out with where you are. And they're like, hey, let's get this problem breakthrough and solution, and then take that a little bit further and create this cool video that's like this hero story about a client. I think that would probably bring some pretty good impact. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's one of those things that's so easy to overlook, because you look at your website, you look at your customers, like they don't care. But the whole idea here, and just like anything in business, is it's not about you. People, honestly, it's kind of a hard thing to swallow, but people don't care about you. A good business, they're not going to be selling services. They're going to be, at the end of the day, they're going to be selling happiness. They're going to be selling an end result that somebody's looking for. And they're wishing that your services can provide that, but they're not looking for your services, and they're not looking for you. So if you can take that step back, kill the ego a bit, and just address your customer, your client, and just really get on their level and feel their pain, that's going to make a huge difference in all of your marketing.
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, maybe even as few as 5 years ago, and for sure longer than that, it was always, look at how big we are, see how big our team is, look at how many roofs we've done, our rating on Better Business Bureau, all that kind of stuff. Like, it was like all about us and this perception that we're bigger than what we may be sometimes.
Yeah.
Where nobody cares about that. They absolutely could care less. They want a little bit of that to say, okay, they're somebody that's viable, but that's not what they're going to make their decision based off of.
Well, and I think that goes. Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were saying about the social proof and actual, like, getting some reviews and testimonials. Like, let your past clients, to your horn for you, because you don't want to be the person out there like, oh, we're this, we're that, we're that. But if you can have other people say that, people automatically lend more credibility to that than you telling them all about how awesome you are. If other people are telling them that you're awesome, then that's going to hold a lot more water.
It's interesting because this actually applies in the way that we teach sales too. Mm-hmm. We teach sales in this, hey, you have a problem. Here's this breakthrough, like this new way of looking at that problem that you may not have seen from anybody before. Yeah. And this is how that solution actually applies to you. It's been a pretty unique way to approach it. And so you start seeing this in everything that goes pretty well. Yeah. And it's pretty cool. So, what would you suggest to somebody wanting to tell a story? Like, is there an exercise they can do? Can they sit down and do some of this on their own? What would you suggest there?
Yeah, I think really just going off that framework there, just finding, if you can find those things there, you start with your problem, figure out what your breakthrough was, then talk about your solution. It doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that is honestly one of the things that holds people up the most is they want it to be perfect. They want to have just the killer thing that's going to work. But that's the thing with anything online, is it's not going to work the first time. Like I've had a ton of different homepages and website designs on my own website, and I've done that for other clients as well, where we'll start in one direction and then it becomes clear we need to go in the other direction. So that's the whole thing about being online and making something happen, making it effective, is that you got to be flexible and you got to be willing to try stuff, because the tragedy is not trying stuff and actually just if you have a website that's not converting and not doing what you want it to do, and you just leave it there and don't actually take action, that's really the problem. And you need to just take action and see what happens.
So that's one of the things about websites too. I try to bring this up with people that we talk about. It doesn't really matter a whole lot what you change or update on your website, but change or update something often. Like it can't just sit there stagnant. There's been sites that I've gone to, as customer prospects have come to us that are interested in having us work with them. And we go back and we look, like first when we engage with them, we see their website. And we go back and look 2 or 3 years later as we're doing some follow-up, and it hasn't changed. It's exactly the same thing. So instead of moving up the list, you're moving down the list as compared to all the people that are making change. Is that something that guys should pay attention to?
Yeah, you definitely don't want to leave your website stagnant. The nice thing is that if you're having somebody come to your website and they check it out and then they come back, a week later, they're not expecting it to be different. So that's not a huge deal. What I would focus on though, like you said, is just testing stuff. So if you have a headline and you haven't gotten, you've got that hero section with an image and some text and a call to action, and you haven't gotten any leads from your website in a month, like try some different text up there, try a different call to action, try a different picture, just try stuff and see what happens.
Well, I almost wonder sometimes, like everybody talks about these algorithms that Facebook and Google and all of them do. I think their algorithm is based on you working this through and making a great effort on providing the consumer out there with a positive experience. Like you hear these SEO guys and SEM guys, and hopefully I'm not going to offend you here, but they always have something they like hang their hat on. Like, you got to do a blog, and that blog has to be this often and this many times. And the next guy will be like, no, you got to do the pictures, and you got to change the pictures. And the other guy's like, no, you got to do videos. And like, to me, it's you got to do what's right. You got to do what's right. That's keeping people on your page. The longer they stay on your page or take action on your page, Google's going, hey, that's a good page. I want to send more people there. If people aren't doing those things, staying engaged or taking action, they're going, move that down. We're not interested. Is that a fair assessment? I'm talking as a layman out here and just from observation, but is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I don't know how into the weeds in SEO you want to get. SEO in 2021 is nuts. Like there's never been more competition. Obviously, there's so many websites vying for that first page ranking that it's more and more competitive. So honestly, for a lot of businesses, I don't look at SEO as a super great strategy, because it is the type of thing that you really need to put in the time and effort and be willing to not see results from it for quite a while in order for it to really start being results. The best metaphor I've heard is like, if you want to do paid ads, that's like buying a water bottle. Like you got the bottle, you drink it, you're good to go, you got some water. And as soon as it's gone though, it's gone. You got to buy another water bottle. Whereas SEO is like digging a well. It's going to be really hard. It's going to take quite a while, but once you have a well, then all of a sudden you've got water and it keeps flowing. So that's what I'd say is, if you want to tackle some of that SEO stuff, there's a lot that you can do on your own, just making sure the on-site SEO is set up correctly. You've got the metadata in the right places and all that sort of thing. And that's, maybe a whole nother topic, but updating your content regularly. If you do have a blog, making sure that you're answering questions that people might have is very important. That's a whole other topic though, of like really what it is that moves the needle on SEO. But those are some of the main things for sure.
So one last question for you.
Yeah.
Because I always like, hey, if we can get something that I can do like right now and maybe move the needle a little bit, let's try to get that if we can. So 1 to 3 things, whatever you decide is the amount. But what's the 1 to 3 things that somebody could do that they could on their own? They don't need your help or anybody else's help, but they could do it on their own that might move that needle in lead generation and marketing for their business right away.
Yeah. Number one, I'd say look at your website and see how it compares to other websites. So that's kind of that audit that we talked about. And I have a resource for this on invicta.enterprises/audit. So it's INVICTA, and I think we'll put that in the show notes probably. But so invicta.enterprises/audit kind of goes through kind of the top. I think there's 10 things on there that you can do to just look at your website, just see what's going on there, compare it to other websites. There's a website I love. It's called awards.com, and it's basically a website of websites. So it's all these awesome award-winning websites from all over the world, and you can kind of look at those and be like, how does mine stack up with some of these? Because they're, as much as a lot of people will kind of poo-poo design and be like, it's not that big a deal, there are statistics to show that you've got, about 70% of people will just bounce from a website if they're not engaged by a good design and it doesn't look professional, et cetera, et cetera. So that would be one thing, is just kind of give yourself an assessment, see where you're at. If you want to use that audit tool, it could be really helpful. So that'd be one, just kind of, give yourself a grade there. Number two, I'd say, is just see how you can reduce the amount of text on your website. I think that's a huge problem. Obviously, you need text on the website to communicate what you do and that sort of thing. There's that whole idea of you got to show, not tell. So if you have just a paragraph after paragraph of text on your website, that's going to be a problem. So definitely make sure that you hone in on the images, quality images. If it's blurry, if it's anything like that, it's going to really turn people off. It looks very unprofessional. So quality images, more images, less text is always a good thing. And then calls to action. I think this is one of the biggest things that anytime I do a discovery call with a person who's interested in getting their website done, it's one of the first things that I ask them is, what is the purpose of your website? And it may seem like a really dumb question at first, like, well, obviously it's, for my business, but that's not really a good answer, because your purpose of your website has to actually be doing something. So the purpose of my website is to get people to, request a quote. And the purpose of my website is to get people to call me. Okay, so now that we know the purpose, how do we build around that? How do we, hone our calls to action to push people in that direction, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those would be the three things. Audit your website, just see where you're at compared to, what else is going on. Sometimes as a contractor, you're so busy, you haven't, like, when was the last time you really paid attention to what a website looked like? 2, reduce the amount of text. Remember, show, don't tell. And then 3 is just really focus on going ahead and making sure that you have just that call to action that is really solid in getting your point across, the purpose of the website.
So you mentioned something there that I wasn't aware of, but it sounds like you do discovery calls with people for their website. Is that something that costs money? Is it free? What do you do?
No, that's free. Yeah. So I've over the years developed about 30 questions. Discovery call usually takes about 30 minutes, but basically it's all these like in-depth questions to really get an idea of like what needs to be done on the website, and kind of hones in on the, repairs, edits, changes, full redesign, whatever needs to happen on the website will be determined on that discovery call. And just really good way to, assess your website further, get a different perspective on it. And a lot of people find it really helpful to kind of, get that outside perspective on their website.
Awesome. Cool. Well, so they can go to invicta.enterprises, I assume, and find that ability to get a discovery call?
Yep.
Awesome. And that is an odd website, just so you got the .enterprises like your .com. So
exactly.
.enterprises.
Yeah.
Hey, Brady, this has been great, man. It's been really good. I think I want to bring you back in the future because I want to talk about actually driving traffic to that site.
Oh, yeah.
Are there some quick hitter things for people like, hey, I got my website kind of tuned in now, according to the website? Hey, I can have the greatest website in the world, but if nobody knows about it, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
So quick tips there?
Yeah, I think the main one, the simplest win that you can do is make sure that your Google My Business profile is optimized. So a lot of people don't even realize they might have a Google My Business profile. So this is an automatic thing. Anytime Google detects another website out there, they're trying. So you got to think from Google's perspective. When somebody Googles something, they want to find their results. They want to find it quick. They want to find it easy. The better Google does at providing quick and easy results, the better people will enjoy Google and keep using it, and they'll make money. So basically, you got to think from Google's perspective. They want your business to be out there if you're providing a good service to people. So if you go to Google My Business, I think they have Right? If you Google My Business, I'm not sure what the address is, but yeah, Google My Business, and then there's some pretty easy steps to get your website registered on there and connected to your Google My Business profile. Yeah, if you have an existing Google My Business profile, you can claim it, and then you can go in and edit it. They verify your ownership and all that sort of thing. You just want to make sure you provide as much information as possible. So if you've ever been to a Google My Business profile for like a restaurant or something, and they're don't even have a menu or something like that, it's really frustrating. So Google My Business is huge, though. Google really likes seeing you use it, and they often reward websites that do use it effectively. So that would definitely be one of the quickest and easiest wins that you could get on that.
I'll tell you one of the most frustrating things that ever happens on that. You are located in one place and you decide to move to a new place, and then Google doesn't pull over your old Google My Business to the new address. They'd make you start all over again. I experienced that. I don't know why it happened. Can't get it resolved. So I've had to build back up the reviews and all that other good stuff. It's been a lot of fun, but I couldn't agree with you more. You have got to invest time in that. And anybody with just a quick look on YouTube can optimize their Google My Business stuff without a whole lot of technical expertise at all.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Brady, thank you for joining us today. Anything you want to leave us with?
No, like I said, if you want to go to invicta.enterprises, it's that weird domain name. I would love to chat with anybody. I can be reached Brady@invicta.enterprises if you have any questions, if anything came up. And again, that invicta.enterprises/audit. It's a free download that you can get, and it's basically it walks you through about 10 different things that you can audit on your website and kind of give yourself a score and see how you're doing compared to other websites in your industry. And then based on that, you'll have some tactical things you can go do to make some changes and upgrade your website, because honestly, that's your first impression these days. So you better get it right.
Awesome, Brady. Hey, man, thanks a lot for being on our show today. And I look forward to talking to you in the future about a few more marketing things.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Thanks for being on. All right, everybody. That was Brady Smith with Invicta Enterprises. Man, what great stuff today. I mean, there was really 3 areas that we focused on. You guys hopefully took some notes in those areas where you may have had the biggest weaknesses. You want to make sure that you go and audit that site. It is something that you need to do. We all need to do it. Compare it to those that are maybe your competitors. One of the nice things about being a contractor, I know all my competitors' websites. Go look at theirs and see how it compares and stacks up against those guys. Make sure that you investigate into that upside down homepage. That was a great idea. That was one I hadn't heard of before. Really kind of grabbed my attention, like, hey, somebody's going to my site for a reason. Give them the thing that they want to do right away, and then build it upside down from there. And then last, this idea of this story integration in your website. Give them your story and make them a part of that story, how they see that solution being their solution, and you probably have a lot of luck in conversions on your website. If you're looking for more strategy on your marketing or anything else regarding your business, sales, leadership, culture, accountability, finance, recruiting, hiring, onboarding, training, we help contractors in half of the last 8 years to a little over $3.3 billion in revenues, and we want to help you do the same by getting control of your business so you can grow your business and find that personal and financial freedom that you're chasing. We do have one thing for you to do on our website whenever you go on there. So go to contractorcoachpro.com and click the assessment button and take our assessment. It takes a few minutes. It takes a few minutes because we want to truly assess you. And if you do, we're going to give you a bonus strategy call. It's an actual real coaching call. It's not a sales pitch or anything like that. We're going to coach you that day based on that assessment, some of the things that you could do quickly to improve your business. So go to contractorcoachpro.com, click on the assessment button, and take our assessment to get a free strategy call with us and improve your business right away. Thanks for hanging out with us today here at Contractor Radio. We'll see you next week with a new episode.